You don't like your boyfriend seeing me braless in the dorm? Then he won't. I live in a college dorm on an all-female floor. I usually wear a bra if leaving the dorm building, but I'm not going to put on a bra under my shirt just to walk down the hall to the bathroom. A few days ago, I left my room and walked 10 yards down the hall to the water fountain, refilled my water bottle, and went back to my room. I was wearing a white tank top and no bra. The tank top was fitted but not see-through, so you could only see the outline of my nips. There was a small group of people hanging out in the hall outside a few of the rooms, but I didn't think much of it. Until around half an hour later, when I got a knock on the door from one of the girls I'd seen in the hall. She said something to the effect of, "Hey, so sorry to ask you this, but if you go out into the hall again, could you put a bra on? My boyfriend's out there and he was staring a little." So, I'm super non-confrontational, so I was like, "Yeah, sure, sorry about that." And for the rest of that night, anytime I left my room I put a bra or sweater on, and that was the end of it. Or so I thought. The next day, my roommate told me she'd overheard the girl telling a few of her friends about the incident while in the bathroom. She said the girl was making it sound like I'd been purposely trying to seduce her boyfriend, wearing basically nothing, taking my time at the water fountain, posing to push out my tits, the whole works. When she left the bathroom, my roommate said the girl was actually acting it out at the water fountain, pretending to be me. That night, I passed the girl and some of her friends on my way to go brush my teeth. I wasn't wearing a bra. I was already in pajamas. The girl looked pointedly down at my chest, and all of them started giggling. But the last straw was when the entire dorm got an email from the RA yesterday, saying she'd gotten some anonymous complaints about people dressing inappropriately in the hallways, and asking that we all just make sure we're keeping things covered up. So here's where I got my petty little revenge. I knew that the girl's boyfriend doesn't go to college here. The girl and I were in the same orientation group, and chatted a bit back then. I also knew that due to the pandemic, we aren't allowed to have non-student/family guests in the dorms this year. So I used the same anonymous complaint form to issue a complaint about people bringing their off-campus boyfriends into our dorm and them not wearing a mask. Masks are mandatory in the hallways, although not frequently enforced. This morning, the RA emailed again saying that due to anonymous complaints, they'd be enforcing the no off-campus guests rule by checking IDs of unfamiliar guests to make sure they were students from then on. Really, this girl should be thanking me. If she was concerned about her boyfriend seeing the vague outline of my tits in the dorm hallways, she no longer needs to worry. My boss kept scheduling meetings during my lunch, so I started eating lunch in every meeting. I used to take my lunch break at the same time every day. 12 to 1. I don't eat breakfast, just coffee and lots of water. So my lunch is essential and I can't just skip it. My calendar was blocked, but my boss, newly promoted, power tripping, started scheduling meetings right in the middle of it. The first couple times, I let it slide. Figured maybe it was urgent, but then it became a pattern. I pushed back and reminded him that it was during my break, and he said, "Well, we all have to make sacrifices sometimes." Cool, got it. Next meeting, I showed up with a full plate of spaghetti and meatballs, had my camera on and mic unmuted, slurping and chewing, occasionally gave thumbs up while mid-bite. Few days later it repeated, so I brought sticky wings. Last week on Thursday, it happened again. Glad I still had my pizza. He finally asked, "Do you have to eat during the meeting?" I smiled and said, "We all have to make sacrifices sometimes. It's Friday today. We didn't have any meetings during my lunch hours this week." Cab driver rips me to shreds, thinking I can't understand him, but I can. Obligatory, this happened several years ago, a few months after I had moved to Chicago. I had moved there from Romania, where I'd been living and going to school. Love Romania, people are great. Drop what you're doing and visit. Anyway, while I was there, due to my living situation, I had to learn the language fast and thoroughly not many people around me spoke English, outside of the uni I was at. So fast forward to the few months after I arrived in Chicago. Imagine my surprise when the driver of the Uber I had ordered appeared to have a Romanian name. The area had a lot of Eastern Europeans, so I guess it shouldn't have been so surprising. I was really excited to talk to him and make sure I wasn't getting rusty, maybe make a friend. Up pulls the guy. I get in, he greets me, but he appears to be on the phone with a buddy/family member. So I just sit quietly in the back, listening in a bit. The person on the other end asks if the driver is getting off work soon. He responded with something like the following: "No, I still have a few hours left, then I'll go home. Right now I have someone in the car. God, I hate this country. The women here are so fat and ugly. At least this one has a nice chest, but why can't she lose some weight?" And he goes on and on about all the problems with me and other American women. Now, I've always been a bit on the chunky side, and you best believe the Romanians love to comment on it, so I was used to it. But I was a bit shocked that this guy was going off like that. Anyway, I'm just kind of sitting bemused in the back seat as we near my destination. Then I tell him, in Romanian, with all my might try and pull off the distinct accent of the region I had been living in, Can you just pull over there on the right? I swear this guy's head did the Exorcist girl head move, and he turned a shade of red I have seen nowhere else in nature. He didn't say anything, just pulled over. When I got out, I said thanks and added, "You're not attractive and you're also fat, so maybe you shouldn't make comments like that." I have never again reached such levels of self-pride. Boss chiseled me out of $100 and paid the price. I'm a contractor. While working on a project in a very remote location, I arranged to buy and bring 2 rounds of breakfast tacos for the staff of the county facility where I would be working for the next week in exchange for free copy privileges. The boss gave approval on the phone, and the total for the tacos that week came out to just over $100. A great exchange, as the copy budget was upwards of $1,000. My receipts, along with a supporting CC statement I submitted at the end of the billing cycle, between a week and 2 weeks after he'd verbally approved the expense, was declined. I wasn't too angry, but a deal's a deal, and I called the boss to remind him he'd approved the expense. His response, "You should have gotten it in writing," pissed me off royally, but I finished the project as promised and was working on another project for another client less than a week later. A couple of months go by, and the boss who'd chiseled me out of the dollar called to see if I was available to work on another project, beginning on the 1st of the next month, and after some haggling I agreed. The work schedule would be tight, and, in his words, this was an all-hands-on-deck project with nights and weekends expected. I was also told this was a new client and they wanted to impress. A couple of days before the project was set to begin, the chiseler called to tell me the engagement paperwork was on the way and check my email. I told him I had decided not to work the project after all, and he was furious. He screamed, "You agreed to work on this project weeks ago." I repeated his words verbatim. "You should have gotten it in writing." She erased us from her wedding, so I'm erasing her from mine. When my brother got married, his bride, now my sister-in-law, had very specific expectations. She wanted everyone in the family to wear their wedding colors, and we all did. People flew in from out of state. Everyone made an effort to make her feel celebrated. The day before the wedding, she made some offhand but clearly pointed remarks about how our side of the family never takes anything seriously, and she wasn't expecting us to take this seriously either. The comments made their rounds, and feelings were hurt before the wedding even began. But we still showed up, looked great, and participated. Fast forward to getting the wedding photos and video. Not a single photo of our side of the family was posted. Not one. In the entire 3-minute highlight reel, no faces from our family, except a 3-second clip of my parents with the bride and groom. The rest of us, it's like we never existed. I texted her cordially and asked if she could send me the pictures with just our siblings, since none had been posted. She responded that we never took those pictures. That's wild because I remember helping people adjust corsages for them. She doubled down on the gaslighting. I gave it 6 months and asked again. She suddenly had no idea what I was talking about. Fine. Here's where the petty revenge comes in. I'm getting married in 8 days. I've been engaged for 6 months and planning this moment since she tried to erase us. I hired a great photographer and videographer. What she doesn't know is that the videographer has a secret mission. Make it look like she's getting all the attention. Track her. Hover near her like she's the star of the show. She will feel so seen. And then the final cut. She won't appear for even 1 second. Just like she made sure we didn't. I didn't even invite her originally. Word must have gotten out because she cornered me at a family dinner and said, "Unfortunately, I have to work the day before and after your wedding, but I should still be able to make it." I was so stunned I just said, "That's fine. The Airbnb is booked whether you're there or not." So now she's coming. Ugh. To cope, I spelled her name wrong on the wedding invite on purpose. That was my first move. The video blackout will be my last. Not asking for advice. Not asking if it's too mean. It's not. It's exactly fair. Happy to finally talk about it freely relieved face. Edit. Update May 12th. The wedding was absolutely beautiful, and I didn't have to think about this all day. We've been living on the love high that comes with the wedding and forgot about anything until YouTube remakes reminded me. Our videographer was given verbal instructions beforehand and made sure to know who SIL was, as our sneak peek clips have been given back to us. I have yet to see her in any of the footage. Our videographer told us they had over 200 gigabytes of raw footage, so SIL will definitely be in some footage on a hard drive somewhere, but she definitely will not end up on any of our Instagram highlights. We'll see about the final video. I definitely didn't think this would blow up like it did. Originally, I only shared this with 3 girls in book club. Thank you all for coming on this petty revenge journey with me. So, you want to snoop in your daughter's texts? So I'm married to a wonderful woman. She's smart, funny, and very kind. Her mother is generally very nice and tends to have a great attitude and be very enjoyable. a bit of a prude but generally enjoyable. However, can be a bit of a major snoop. If my wife leaves her phone sitting around, she will just pick it up and start going through it. My wife has kind of laughed this off as a remnant of her mom being controlling when she was a kid. I'm not a fan of this because my wife and I will sometimes text about things that simply don't involve her mother, and I don't feel her business at all. So over Christmas, I saw my wife set her phone down on the kitchen counter, and I had a brilliant idea. Her mom was still in the kitchen, and I sent my wife the most sexually depraved text about all the things I was going to do to her when everyone left. Honestly, most of them are things we haven't even done, but I had to make it extra scarring. I sent this text from the bathroom, and maybe it was my imagination, but I could swear I could hear an audible gasp shortly after her phone went off. When I went out, her mother absolutely would not look me in the eye, then not so discreetly asked her daughter to come talk to her in the other room. When my wife came back into the living room, I thought she had been crying. However, upon closer inspection, she was laughing. Her mother had questioned her about me sexually abusing her, and if I always talked down her like that. My wife had told her kindly that what we do is between us and us only. Probably the best gift this Christmas. Lie about having COVID to take 6 weeks off while I do your work for free. I'll throw an all-office party to announce where you really were. Mid-pandemic, my boss disappeared, just as we were gearing up for our most challenging, time-intensive project in the last 5 years. He dropped off the face of the earth. We kept working for a week or so without him because everything was virtual and the virtual work world was still so new. We didn't really need him. We were delegating tasks ourselves and completing things on our own. We spoke to coworkers maybe twice a week, but some decisions were beyond our discretion, so we could not move forward on those aspects of the project until we received a response from him. After about 7 to 10 total days of silence, we called his boss's boss, who informed our team that our boss had COVID, so wasn't able to work right now. We took that at face value, of course, sent him letters of well wishes, and didn't bother him with work stuff. Or ask why he was able to notify his boss, but not us. 3 weeks go by. Still not a word. We're beginning to discuss amongst ourselves whether or not he's maybe died. We're terrified and horrified, and so concerned. We're contemplating calling his extended family. We're sending flowers and care packages to his apartment. Meanwhile, the project has descended into chaos because no leader was appointed in our boss's stead. So we are forced to navigate several layers of bureaucracy in order to accomplish most anything at all. Whereas in the past, he would have just signed off in real time. Around week 4 or 5, one of our coworkers suggests he doesn't really have COVID, but is instead using it as an excuse to take time off. We all jump all over our coworker, asking how he could insinuate something like that, and lamenting about what a tragedy our boss is probably living through. People were chilly to him for days after that. Week 7, we're undertaking a letter writing campaign to upper management, demanding an acting boss be appointed while ours is recovering. The project is a month behind schedule. We're all working overtime every day, sometimes on weekends, without extra compensation, just to keep up with the clusterfuck of the boss's sudden absence. Week 8, he finally reappears, logging into a morning meeting as though nothing happened. He looks well-rested, well-fed, and has a tan. Not at all like someone who's just come out the other side of a 6-week respiratory virus. He says something quickly to the effect of, "Yeah, that was brutal. Glad to be better and glad to be back. Let's get to work." But doesn't want to talk about what happened or answer any of our questions like, "Were you in the hospital? What was it like?" etc. Fast forward to about 4 or 5 months after this. My sister sends me a promo for a fairly new reality show. I'd never heard of it, but it's on a major platform, and says, "Isn't this guy a friend of yours or something? I swear I've seen him and you together." I watched the trailer for this show, and lo and behold, there's my boss, participating as a contestant on a reality TV show. It did not take long for me to put the pieces together and realize he took extended leave to go on TV, that he knew he wouldn't otherwise get during this massive project, and lied about it under the guise of a vicious disease that nearly all of us had lost a loved one to. I sit and stew with this information, unsure of how to handle it. I know confronting him won't get me very far, but I can't just do nothing, right? I'm not close enough with any of my colleagues to discuss this with them and trust that they wouldn't run off and send an all-company email about it. So I slept on it a few nights, and then the opportunity fell right in my lap. I got an email from corporate encouraging teams still working remotely to plan virtual social functions, to keep a collegial culture going, and to stay in touch. Among the suggestions were game night, trivia, and watch party. With the premiere of the show only a couple weeks away, I got busy telling everyone how I'd been meaning to get into the show, and it's so enticing and exciting. basically laying the groundwork to guilt them into coming to an impromptu virtual watch party off hours. I offered to get special shirts made up and send them to each person's house. Whatever I had to do to get the attention of corporate. Finally, I sent an EV to all my boss's bosses and any other members of corporate I could justify inviting without making a total ass of myself. Because this is entirely virtual, my boss is unable to overhear any of the chatter. He doesn't realize I'm hyping up this show, and he doesn't realize I've planned a watch party for it. I wasn't inviting him unless he had the balls to explicitly ask about it. I was hoping he wouldn't have heard about it at all. Not until afterwards. That was really the only way this could work. The night comes and I am screen sharing the show to a whopping 64 people. A huge chunk of my department. Many members of corporate had showed up because I was the only person stupid enough to buy into their virtual social work party scheme. So they felt pressure to support it. I was holding my breath, hoping this would go my way, bracing myself for some kind of curveball. But there wasn't even that dramatic of a build-up. Right at the outset, they introduced the premise, which included the contestants being in a COVID-safe bubble in an exotic location, and gave a brief overview of each contestant. As my boss was introduced, right down to what he did for work, and I could see people register delight and surprise, then go blank, just before sliding into confusion and rage. The chat took a drastic turn from, "Oh my goodness," and "I knew him when," and all sorts of pithy jokes to a brave member of my team. Or perhaps one just pushed a tad too far by all the extra hours he pulled in this douche's absence. Sent the message. Wait, when was this filmed? My audience dropped from 64 to 58 to mid-30s. And by the time the episode was over, it was just me and the other 15 core members of the team. One asked if I'd already known, but some members of the team are very close to the boss. So all I said was, "Well, I definitely do now," and wrapped up the call pretty quickly after that. Perhaps one of the best bonuses is that you could already tell from episode 1 that the character arc the show assigned our boss was bumbling idiot. He had his true colors on in full display, and some production massaging up them to the 11th degree. Boss was fired. My good buddy was promoted to his place. I am an office legend now, especially since no one is 100% sure whether or not it was intentional. And it was all so satisfying that it was almost worth the dozens of hours of uncompensated overtime that led to it. About 5 years ago, my company brought in an individual to see if my position was no longer needed. I passed with flying colors. Not to give too much info away, I was hired in an organization as a job title of basically helper. Well, for someone who was supposed to just be helping, I had a ridiculous amount of work. Almost all of my coworkers were huge technologically illiterate boomers. So I actually sort of thrived this as a very useful person. For example, one guy would spend half his day copying items and passing them into another program we use. He didn't even use Control-C, Control-V. He would right-click, then copy, then go into the Files menu or something, and insert copied item from clipboard. He was so proud of himself when he showed me because, don't worry, you won't have to retype everything. I wrote a program to do this automatically, but did not tell him. So I would just run it occasionally as part of my responsibilities. Anyway, I did a lot of stuff like this. I'd estimate I saved about 15 hours of work every day. On top of the 8.5 hours I did too. But then insert Sergeant Fuckface. This wasn't the military, but I just like to call him that. We are having a team meeting when he shows up. White hair combed okay-ish, a scrunched face, glasses. He just showed up one day and took notes during our morning meeting. At one point, someone brought up a name of one of our customers. I said, "Oh, is that the 300 pounds guy with a big beard?" Sort of as a joke, because I mostly do back-end stuff. There was a guy like this I recently did some entrance stuff for, but I was wrong and my boss said, "No, it's blah blah some other person." Okay, then we talked about that person a bit. Fast forward about a week, and this SGTFF is a complete fucking dishabag to me. I don't know why. He will ignore me during group conversations and literally sometimes scoff at me. Who actually scoffs at people? I was having a really rough week looking for some extremely important files. People were yelling all day. I was exasperated. Too much to do. I was having anxiety attacks at home in the middle of the night, but it was Friday, so I was pulling through. As I looked for this file, I ended up deep on our file structure, and the search returned a personal folder structure within one of the drives. I clicked out of curiosity, and there was SGTFF's notes. I opened it, and there was a whole section about me. This guy basically goes from location to location, getting people fired to save the CEO's money. And he was working on me now. I scrolled through his notes, and at the very top I saw, Frosty thought a 4 feet 10 inches 24-year-old female patient was a 300 pounds bearded man. Clearly atrocious attention to detail. That's just one example of how completely fucked up his comments were. So, in combination with my job, which I generally liked and enjoyed helping people, knowing I wasn't getting paid enough for my effort, this horrible week I had, and SGT Fuckface's comments, I said fuck this. I set up 3 email configurations. To my boss, letting him know I will be taking 2 weeks of vacation time to be sent at 10 p.m. tonight. To the company, letting them know I will not be present for 2 weeks. So whatever work they currently need me to do, they will need to do themselves. To be sent Monday morning at 4 a.m. For any emails that came in, I sent an auto response that said, I will be out for an unknown amount of time. For any routine, emergency, or even occasional items, it is imperative you reach out to SGD Fuckface at XXX for assistance. Then, I turned off every automated task I had ever set up. Then I swung by FS temporary office and said, I think I found a way to make your job easier. He didn't even really turn his head to look at me, but just raised one eyebrow. Then I left. I actually got multiple calls on Monday morning I didn't answer. It didn't last long apparently, but I stayed strong and didn't respond to anything. On Wednesday, I had a little anxiety about it, but I stayed as strong as I could. I thought about the tasks that needed a 2-day turnaround. There's no way some of the guys were keeping up with their normal duties. Guaranteed at least 2 people were no longer doing their normal jobs just to keep up with my automated tasks. I got a long email to my personal account, I guess for my resume, or when I interviewed, from my boss on Thursday night of the first week. It went something like this. Frosty, I know you're a smart person and probably figured out what the company had us doing. I would say it's very important you call me, but that probably isn't going to work, I see. I've talked with SGTFF's boss, and he will be leaving our location. I explained our progress meetings seem to be going in the wrong direction and that you are one of our most valuable employees here. I am sure you're probably looking at other jobs at this point, or maybe you have even started one. I hope not. If you could please reach back to me, I would like to offer you a raise. It has become very apparent how useful you are around here. I hear about it every day, believe me. So I came back on Monday with a $10,000 raise in SGT Fuckface out of my face. My boss apologized again in person and said he didn't get a say in it. I think it's a little weird he could have a say after I left, but not before, but I sort of get it. You want to steal my lunch? Eat my period. This is the classic story about that asshole who steals food from the work refrigerator. It was about 10 years ago, at least twice a week. My homemade lunch would disappear from the fridge. The thief had the decency not to take the box, which I found empty or almost empty every time. I was new and quickly discovered by talking to my colleagues that it was the work of a misogynistic jerk with whom I obviously didn't get along. He wasn't new to this, but the management never did anything. Fine, I'm a petty person, and I have time to spare. I started bringing decoy lunches that I put in the fridge, and I would eat a sandwich that didn't need to be refrigerated. After 2 weeks, I started talking to everyone, including him, about this new wellness method I had discovered and was following to the letter, collecting my menstrual blood to eat it. I even showed a video on my phone where I was preparing the meal and emptying my menstrual cup into it. I am well aware of the severe risks associated with getting into contact with someone else's blood. So rest assured that it was not true. I just wanted to get him to believe it. It is possible, however, that he ate my feet's dead skin. Anyway, he took a week off after that, and our shared fridge became a safe place to store our food. I stole from a shopping cart. So this happened a few days ago at a grocery store. I was waiting patiently in my lane, and beside me was the priority lane for senior citizens, PWDs, etc. There were a couple of elderly people sitting on the chairs provided specifically for them while waiting for their turn. Pretty normal setup. Now, some guy casually walks up and cuts right in front of the seated seniors. I speak up and say, "Hey, they're already in line." And this guy, without even looking at me, goes, "I don't see them standing in line though." Real smug, real dismissive. The elderly folks looked uncomfortable but didn't want to cause a scene. So I shut up and I simmered. A few minutes later, we're still in the lanes and I notice his cart is stacked with what looks like camping gear such as a sleeping bag, paper plates, marshmallows, instant noodles, a portable stove, etc. And there was a single can of butane gas. And right there, I saw an opportunity. The guy's blabbering on the phone, totally distracted. So I casually leaned over, plucked the butane from his cart, and slid it into mine. He didn't notice. He checked out and left. I paid for my stuff, including his butane, and walked away. Somewhere out there, this man arrived at his campsite, probably boasting about how smart and quick he is. And when he tried to fire up that portable stove, no gas, no hot food, no coffee, just crunchy noodles and the sweet taste of consequences. Hopefully. Edit. Some stores where I'm from put up those plastic benches for priority lanes. Also, PWD means people with disability.